Hey guys, Joe here with howtohotshot.com. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today here is going to be the hitching systems that we use in the bed of these one-ton trucks to actually connect to the couplers on the trailer. I've talked about the trailer portion pretty good detail in the past, and that those are on my 3 how to pick a trailer videos. But I did promise to sit here and kind of talk about the hitching systems that we use in the beds of these trucks. And I've actually got a lot of input on this because there is a lot that goes into this portion. So there is a possibility that I might make a part 2 video for this. Who knows what happens as soon as I get 2 days from now and realize, oh man, I didn't put something in the video. So without ado, kind of move into this. I guess first I'll start talking, I'll kind of go over, bumper, the bumper pull hitches. That's going to be a really brief one. I guess as far as like bumper pull hitches go, there are a few trailers that you can use as far as like car hauling goes. You can use the single car trailers, and oftentimes, when commercial car haulers use these, for very high dollar cars or very rare antique cars that they're transporting in town locally. Also, 1 and 2 car enclosed, and then you've got your 4 car stacker trailer, which is it's a very tall trailer. I think that they sit at least 13.6 high, and that stacks two sports cars, because you're not going to get anything bigger like an SUV or a truck inside that vehicle, and they pull behind. Your hitch systems that come on these one-ton trucks are pretty basic. Always look at 2 things on your hitch. 1, what the hitch is designed to pull, and 2, what your tongue weight is. And I can tell you that what your tongue weight is the most important thing that you're going to be looking for. They make different types of hitches. I think it's like all the way up to like class 5 or something like that. I used to know a lot more about it, but I haven't been doing any bumper pulling in quite some time. But I do know that as of recent years, that they actually have a larger diameter hitch, and that or larger diameter receiver, and that actually requires a larger hitch that goes in there and enables you to tow more weight. Always, and you're going to be listening to me talking about this, always make sure that every component you're using is rated for the weight that you're using, that you're going to be pulling. So if I have a class 5 receiver that allows me to tow X amount of weight, and I plan on towing that amount of weight, I also need to make sure that the hitch itself is rated for that amount of weight. I need to make sure that the ball itself is rated for that weight. And just keep that in mind. I can't even tell you how many people get so excited to get out here and do this, and then they think, oh, I've got the truck to do it, and they end up using one wrong component, and that one wrong component can create a disaster because it becomes that one link, that one weak link in that chain. So keep that in mind. The only other thing I have to say about bumper pulls is if you haven't done any research in sway bar technology, and you're considering pulling a tag axle, which would be on the hitch down a bumper pull, definitely look into that technology. They have been putting that together for years and years. I watched a bunch of videos on it. I've done a lot of reading on it, read a lot of literature on it. And, the crazy thing is these guys have designed bumper pull hitch systems that are actually as safe, or in some instances safer, than a gooseneck pull, a gooseneck trailing system that goes down the road. I highly suggest a sway bar setup. A lot of people think it's just weight distribution, and that's not what it is. What it is with these longer trailers, bumper pull trailers, and they sometimes get top heavy. When your truck takes a dip, your truck is actually meant to lean to one side. when you're coming around a corner or making a turn at a high speed. Your trailer is not designed to do that. And so what a sway bar setup does is it actually leans that trailer into the turn when you're making that turn, and it makes it more aerodynamic and gives you more traction where you need it to make that. It's a very safe setup, and for any bumper pull trailer out there, I highly suggest it if you're going to be pulling, you know, any of the larger trailers that are out there. So without ado, I'll move into the more frequently and more commonly used are the gooseneck and fifth wheel hitching systems. And so for a lot of you guys, you know, what I'm about to talk about might not really pertain if you're going to be using newer equipment. If you're going to be using newer equipment, the biggest differentiating factor on whether you use a gooseneck ball or you use a fifth wheel setup is going to be what kind of equipment, or you know, what kind of trailer that you're going to be using. I kind of went over that in my how to pick a trailer, as far as, you know, your fifth wheel rockers and what you're going to be looking for as far as traction. If you use a fifth wheel setup on the back of your 1-ton that isn't a four-way articulating fifth wheel, then, you know, when you're hauling cars, what I've come to the conclusion is you're going to put a lot more wear and tear on your shocks and your struts on your power unit. Because if, you know, for example, myself, when towing with a 1-ton Hotshot, I use a gooseneck setup, and the reasoning for that is when I look out my rear view mirror and I'm looking at my trailer going down the road, it's always kind of floating a little bit, okay? And I'm glad that my gooseneck just basically absorbs that float. Okay, if I had a non-four-way articulating fifth wheel hitch, and you know, it just articulated like a Class 7 or a Class 8 tractor, my power unit, being my 1-ton, would absorb all of that sway and would eventually wear out my my suspension components quite rapidly. And let me tell you something, those components are pretty pricey, and so that's why I've come to the conclusion that in this industry, you know, given the pros and the cons, the gooseneck hitch system is the best one to go with. Now, on that note, you know, the one thing that you don't get is what I just talked about with that sway system. I don't have my power unit pulling my trailer down into a curb, so I really have to watch my speed coming around turns. I mean, when I'm pulling a 50-foot trailer, I'm really not moving very fast at all anyway, especially when I've got cars strapped down on the deck. But, you know, you really got to watch your speed when you're using a gooseneck, because that's going to, you know, go in the path of least resistance, and that least resistance is away from the direction that you're pulling. So, you know, those are some of the pros and cons. What I have here is a rail system, and I wish I could tell you that these rail systems are awesome, but in my opinion, they're really not, and here's the reason why. For the guy that's hauling a camper in the back of his truck, he probably puts these rail systems in, never has an issue. For the guy that's pulling a horse trailer, you know, 3 or 4 times a year or something with the back of his truck, probably never has an issue. But it does not seem to me like these railing systems here were designed for the everyday use Hotshot. They are kind of an antiquated system. They've been around for years and years and years. And I think that that's why the newer trucks that you see out there that have those higher towing capacities don't even offer this. They've already got a ball system, you know, that can be installed by the factory, a factory ball system into the bed of your truck. But if you don't have a newer truck and you're looking to put in a system, I can tell you that this would be the last system that I would go with. And the reasoning being for that is these bolts that hold this down. With this particular setup, I have 6 bolts, 2 on the outside, 1 in the middle on both rails. Those bolts do back out. I have tried everything with heavy, heavy equipment mechanics out of Nevada. We have tried to put on the Loctite that you literally have to use a torch to get off, and yeah, they still back out. That seems to help, as far as pulling these bolts out and rethreading them. Every once in a while, you're going to have to get in there. You're going to have to change them, make sure you have the right grade, because, that bolt coming in and out like that is just going to strip that threading. They are kind of a hassle. The only thing that you get out of this, that you can get out of other, the other hitching systems that are available today, is a versatility, but to switch between a fifth wheel and a gooseneck hitching system. And like I said, that's readily available here today. I know that a lot of people went with these hitching systems, this railing system here, because it was the most economically feasible way in the past. It doesn't seem like it's that way now. The only other thing I have to say about these railing systems is, again, know your capacity for these railing systems. To my knowledge, there are two different types of these railing systems. And the first railing system is this one that I have, that has bolts that go directly through the bed and just basically use the bed as a little bit of a support, but directly attach to the frame. Okay. If you look at this system here, where the rails have gotten loose and slidden back and forth, trust me, you could feel it in the power unit. When you're starting and stopping, those holes have been wallered out down through the bed. But that's the way this system works. The other system is a railing system that basically lays in place and just bolts to the bed of the truck. I highly do not suggest that system for anyone. I don't care if you're pulling an empty 15-foot gooseneck trailer down the road. I do not suggest this system. We had another 1-ton truck that was involved in a collision, and even though it had the railing system that was connected to the frame, it still ripped the railing system out of the bed of the truck, and the trailer ended up going into the cab of the vehicle. You can only imagine what would happen with a small, a small trailer that wasn't even loaded going down the road when you get into a collision, because it's actually the impact with another vehicle that allows that railing system to break free and still come into the cab. It's a horrific thing to even think about. That's why I can tell you it is not that much it's not that much more money or expensive to go with a system like a Hideaway ball system. Now, these things are awesome. For the price point, they are right on. Generally, you can install them yourself in just a few hours if you got some buddies. They're closed, a closed unit package, and they are rated for some. They're rated to run with the big boys in most instances. Now, make sure you're checking the ratings. But the last time I was looking, they were definitely in the price price range that I was looking at when I was passing through Las Vegas at a trailer parts store. And so I'm highly considering just scrapping this and going with one of those systems, because it is a closed box that bounce into holes and around your frame below your bed. So you don't have to worry about it with two separate pieces like you do in this system here. And you just drill a hole in the center of the bed, and plus, it helps with the resale value of your vehicle. When you're not using it, you can pull a lever on some of them, the ball will fall down, and you still have a flat bed versus having the rails and all this equipment here. Highly suggest those systems. They're awesome. If you go, well, I'd love to use one of those systems, but I have a fifth wheel, or I want to use a fifth wheel. They make adapters that'll allow you to get around that. Whether you're using a kingpin to gooseneck adapter on your actual trailer yourself, or they make an assembly that is a little pricey but definitely convenient, that mounts in the bed over the ball and allows you to have that fifth wheel hitch design in the bed of your truck. Again, make sure you're checking your load limits for this equipment. Now, when you're looking at fifth wheels, goosenecks, it's not only important to check what the plate or what the equipment is rated for a towing stance. You also, with car hauling, especially especially need to know what the vertical load limit is on this piece of equipment. That is literally as crucial as seeing what your horizontal pulling limit is. So, for example, and I can't remember what the vertical load limit is on this plate that I have here. Although I know it is more than capable for doing what I'm doing. But I know that this gooseneck plate here is rated to pull 25,000 pounds behind my truck. So I've never had a problem with it. They're awesome. One of the things I like about these little shorty plates here, and I have never done it myself, but I have seen many people do it before, is you can actually mount your fifth wheel over the top of this. When you're using your fifth wheel, if you're one of those people that goes back and forth, maybe you got your camper and you want to pull it with your Hotshot rig on days off or something like that, you don't even have to worry about pulling out this gooseneck plate. You can literally mount your fifth wheel over the top of that, and then once you're done, pull your fifth wheel plate off and still have your gooseneck plate there. I do grease the ball on my gooseneck, and I know, I thought it was crazy the first time I saw a guy in Montana do it. I said, "Man, are you greasing the ball on that?" He goes, "Yeah." And I didn't do it, and after a while, I just got tired of looking at that ball just rust. And I decided, what it could really hurt, other than my hands when I touch it or something falls on it in the back of my truck and it gets all greasy. That is kind of a bummer. But other than that, I really don't have any issues with it. For the most part, these plates are pretty easy to install and remove. They are incredibly heavy to get in and out, but for the most part, they are pretty easy to install. The best thing about one of these railing systems, is that they are very versatile. But again, I personally think that they're a little antiquated for what the world has to offer now, and that there are better ways to go about it. You get a good look at my the back of my truck now. So if you've seen auxiliary fuel tank videos that I put up before, you can see that I get a good amount of bed space in here. As far as keeping everything clear, no judgments on the trash and stuff that I have in the back of my truck. I won't judge you if you don't judge me. It's very hard to kind of keep this stuff clean when you're going down the road. I suppose the only other thing that I can think of to talk about is something that I've talked about in the past, and that is go with an 8-foot bed. If you're choosing between a 5.5 and a 6-foot bed or an 8-foot bed, go with the 8-foot bed. Oftentimes when we're running flips and even with your standard car trailer, oftentimes enough, we're already getting too close to that back window and getting too close to the cab as it is. I don't suggest running offsets. They are available, and what those allow you to do is set your actual tongue on the gooseneck or the fifth wheel back. I highly suggest you not do that in hotshot car hauling or hotshotting in general. I've never done it as far as just towing the camper down the road, but I highly suggest you do not do it in this industry, because we are talking about a huge amount of weight. That might not sound like much weight if you're coming from running like a Class 8 tractor, you're coming from, moving freight or something, and you're thinking, man, it's just 30,000 pounds. But I think what you need to think about is how relative it is to the capacity of the equipment that you're operating. Having these things set the way they're supposed to be set and not playing around with those offsets, the best way to go. If you don't think it'll affect your braking capacities, your braking power, and how your vehicle operates when you slam on your brakes, and that weight is distributed off of that rear axle and behind it, you're wrong. It most definitely will. The thing about these setups is most people think, oh, it can do this, going up and down the road just fine. But, I think the question is, can it do it? And will you survive? Is this something you're going to be willing to maintain or try and keep under control in the midst of an accident when you're locking up those brakes? Are you going to be completely confident with that equipment that's behind you? One thing I can stress the most over and over and over is make sure that you understand what the working load limits are of every connecting piece of equipment. Just because you get a trailer that's rated for X amount of pounds, you need to go in and make sure that that gooseneck is rated for that many pounds, that your plate is rated for that many pounds, that your rails are rated for that many pounds. And then you need to go back to the manufacturer of your truck. You need to give them your VIN, and you need to make sure that your truck itself, the exact truck that you're operating based upon your VIN number, authorizes you to tow that amount of weight. There is one other thing that I'd like to talk about this hitching system. I think it's very irrelevant. You know, you see me, I'm sitting here out on my tailgate right now. They do have those louvered tailgates. I think they look very snazzy, although it just never really seemed like it was something that was gonna, you know, pique my interest or be anything that I was gonna need, so I never went with it. I do have another toolbox that I keep in here. It's a long toolbox, but I have that at one of my other yards down in Tennessee right now, and so I've got to go pick that up and throw that back in here. But yeah, so if you got any questions or comments, I'd love to hear about them. You know, if I get a lot of feedback on this, like, hey, what's this, I'll definitely make another video to kind of go over some of those talking points, and I'll get back to you on that. Please like my page, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you on the next one.